Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Shooting the Shift. Milton's off on holiday in the 1940s for some reason. That's Matt.
Hi.
That's Bryn.
A bubble stuck in my hair. Tonight
we're going to talk about a few things, but I want to open the bidding with why the general public are such a collective bunch of f***ing morons.
Years of underfunded education.
That is potentially it. But
no, that's not it. People are stupid whether or not they can do maths. They're still idiots.
So I'm going to come at this from a position of safety. And I am just
going to point out that you are ranting about the fuel shortage.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is not at all a fuel shortage, right? It's a lorry driver shortage, and I've got a solution.
It's not even a particularly big lorry driver shortage causing a fuel shortage. So, it's a really localised problem.
Yeah, it was really localised to a handful of BP fuel stations. That's it. That's all it was. And everyone's gone, I need some fuel.
I know. I was like, I can only buy 30 quid's worth of V-Power, which at the price of V-Power because of the fuel shortage is a thimbleful. Essentially. So
that's the other thing these petrol stations have forgotten is they don't sell fuel. People don't buy fuel per monetary value. They buy however much is in their tank, which is in litres.
No, some people do that. Like I remember living in the States, and you'd just get people who'd go in and be like, put $20 on pump 2, and they'd just fill up to the limit and the pump would cut off.
Yeah, but my point is...
And I wish we could do that here.
Well, the thing is, when you go and fill up your car, if you've got a 40-litre fuel tank in your car, whether it's £1.50 per litre or £2 per litre, it's still 40 litres. So to fill your tank, you still need 40 litres.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those. I think the reality of the whole situation is I am
morons.
Yeah. So, and they listen to the news on social media a little bit too much.
No. People don't listen to the news on social media too much. What they do is they read the headline, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
The moral of the story is go out and read a book. Right.
The moral of the story is refer to last week's episodes where we said internet.
Yeah.
Just don't read. Don't read anything, ever.
But
yeah, that'll work.
No, do read. I've got some cool books up there.
No, I don't read. I don't read most of the time. I didn't know there was a fuel shortage until I got to work and everyone was complaining. It was great.
Don't read
anything.
I'm sat looking at my bookshelf like bonsai basics from when I tried to grow a bonsai tree. That was Bryn's fault when he got sent all those plants, right? Machiavelli's The Prince and Other Writings.
Oh, you're a hipster.
Yeah, you're not going to enjoy my
I got given that book when I was 13 years old.
Explains why he's such a hipster.
What else have I got? I've got Brian Tracy, Goals. Matt gave me that. Book Club, Matt. It's one of the ones you gave me. And then I've just got a load of like tattoo...
Didn't I give you the 80-20 principle as
well? Yeah, I've got the 80-20 principle up there. And then I've just got a load of art books and a book called The Science of Supercars from one of my mates who wrote that book. Which is pretty cool.
I can't even tell you what I've got because I can't read. It's all just squiggles to me.
and yet he designs race engines.
Don't need to read, do I?
Just numbers, right?
I think most of my books are downstairs, to be fair.
And this moves us on to the nice thing about Bryn and engineering, and this thing that we're starting to do a little bit at home now. Home casual random bits of engineering and prototyping, which is going to be the core focus of this episode because the only one of us who doesn't have the capability to rapidly prototype stuff is Milton, and he's not here.
This is true.
Yeah,
so like. Bryn's done loads of random little rapid prototyping bits for us all in the past.
I'd have had some props if I knew this was the topic.
I'm gonna demonstrate the latest thing that somehow I managed to do without having to phone Bryn in.
This is the only reason we're doing this topic, is because you want to show off.
I've got a new toy.
Yeah.
I've got a new toy and it does a gradient thing. So we've had this idea for a new camera for when we go to events for a while, and then I remembered I had an old RC car kicking about, and essentially this is now low enough in theory to get under the back end of Milton's car, which is a really important starting point for a chase cam.
Only Milton's car, though, because Milton runs his car at 16 feet off the ground.
Yeah, we can try and get it under everybody else's. We'll see what happens. I reckon it'd go under the stage, yeah.
You are 100% not getting that under the FC.
Yeah, you're not getting that under my car.
Is that because the FC is... I'll get it under the FC right now. It's sat on axle stands, right?
No, it's on its wheels at the moment.
There's only one way to find out. We're going on a camera explore in Matt's garage, apparently.
Yeah, that's because when the FC is done, it's going to have about that much gap between the body kit and the floor.
That's fair.
You just need to make a smaller camera car.
The camera on its own won't fit under the car.
By the time Matt's FC is done, camera technology will allow you to have a rice grain-sized floating camera that just skims along the floor.
Just going... But
anyway,
in that we've got a couple of things, and we've got, you know, like I've done this work in a week, so the shell's taken the bulk of the work. Actually, this mount that fits perfectly on the front, I thought was going to take the longest bit of work, but it took a grand total of 4 hours to do. And then behind me, I have got some props of various stages in development through this, and I used my rainbow.
Christ,
you used the expensive filament.
There is no point in that rainbow filament, right? Because, right, I'm going to put this into context now. If I stack these in order of production, right, that is a grand total of in excess of, what, there's 15 hours in each of these printed.
The problem you've got is there's not enough infill on that to actually gain the gradient change. So the multicolored filament is fantastic for building big parts with a lot of infill, which you're not doing.
Oh, no, I totally understand why, but I never do that, so that's my prototype of filament now.
I've not really done anything like that either. It's one of those filaments that I'd buy for one specific job.
And
it
that's
would probably take the whole roll to do it.
That's why I bought it, and what I actually did was print Amy like a little French bulldog thing for the tattoo studio. And the plan was it would be rainbow. I would have had to print it at 400% infill to get the rainbow functionality out of it for the side of the thing. But the reality is I've essentially been the laziest engineer ever and not measured a single thing because I can run off the next... Yeah, just what do I need to tweak next in an iterative process?
Well, just because I keep most of the stuff that fails. I've got an entire box of stuff. I'm just trying to... I did these table things for the shelf behind me. The legs were just way too thin.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that until I printed it.
Yeah.
The legs are exactly the same thickness as the actual shelf itself. And I just printed it. It's like, yeah, they're way too flimsy. I just printed another one. So all the stuff I did for my tool cart to put all my sockets and that in, these were just a fraction too small.
That's
another one. These were that store the sockets firstly, but the pegs were too close together. Move them a millimetre apart. Some of this stuff you just don't know until you've printed it.
Yeah, but then you can get into some cool stuff. So that big light is not expensive light. That's 3D printed. And then Bryn actually uses it for practical, sensible stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of just printing stuff again and again until it's right deeply offends me, since my job is to design things so that they are right first time around. But it's a different thing. Once you get past, just printing things you find and you get into actually designing stuff, you can start to make custom bits like that.
Yeah.
I'm actually looking at my box of stuff, and each one of these, apart from the very first one I did where I had slightly different issues, because this one, the pegs were too tall. So I put the first socket on the end, and it sat a few mil off the pipe because I'd made them too tall. So I'll shorten them, and then I'll print it again. But I hadn't checked the rest of them, so I printed the second one, and the pegs were too close together. And that's just me not checking all of my tolerances before printing another one. But for the majority of this stuff, I only had one that failed.
I find it like I think it bodes well for the future, right? So there's a company out there that's printing like vents, all kinds of magical vents for the MX-5. So they're like there's Pokemon themed ones. They've definitely got
the stuff that goes in the eyeball vents.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
I've done one recently. I designed one for a company that they're going to start making.
Because before 3D printing was as accessible as it is, everyone used RC car wheels.
Yeah.
I forget exactly what the scale was.
1/10.
1/10 scale. Yeah, and the wheels just fit perfectly in, and that's what everybody used.
There's one. The other 3 are in my car.
Yeah, but that's my point. But now you've got a 3D printer, odds are you'd probably just print them.
Yeah. I think as far as rapid prototyping goes, one thing that I'd like, a counter thing that I'd just like to point out is it's become one of those gadgets that everybody can get and really cheaply print and design, like do loads of stuff. Yeah. However, that does also mean there's a lot of people just printing because they can. So it's also increasing waste quite a lot, I think, because people are printing, making, and getting rid of stuff. Yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because now you have a really cheap, accessible way for people to create loads of plastic waste that they would not have done before.
There's 2 caveats to go with that. One is the company I buy from, the only bit of plastic it actually comes with is the airtight packaging the whole thing comes in. The reel itself is cardboard, and everything it's delivered in is cardboard. Yeah. So it's all recyclable. However, the plastic itself is biodegradable. It's I forget exactly what's in PLA, but it's not plastic, but it is plastic.
I'm kind of interested longer term when I've got a bigger workshop in looking at recycling what I've used, like fragmenting it, melting it down, and reusing it.
There is ways of doing it, but for home use, it's just not worth it.
That's what I mean when I'm in a bigger workshop. Is kind of because then I can make a prototyping reel out of the old prototypes.
So PLA is formally obtained by condensation of lactic acid with loss of water, which is literally where PLA comes from. Mm-hmm. Polylactic acid.
Yes.
So it's not plastic, but it is plastic.
It is. Well, I'd be interested to know the impact of it. It strikes me, I got a 3D printer because there are some things that it's really useful to be able to prototype, like actually rapid prototype. Like, I can measure stuff, design stuff to the nth degree, but sometimes you just need to test fit it. Or one thing I do quite a lot is print something with some basic dimensions that makes it a lot easier to measure all the rest of the stuff that was impossible before.
Yeah,
that's what it's really good for. That's rapid prototyping. But some of the guys I work with, like, bring in stuff they're printing, and they're like, look, I printed a little boat. Sick. The are you going to do with that?
So
look, I've got this new flexible filament, and I've made this octopus, and it's really flexible. Cool. The are you going to do with that?
So the thing is, there's 2 things I want to point out here. One is you made use of the rapid prototyping when you did Chris's intake. If you haven't seen that, it's over on Chris's channel. And he runs through all the processing because you videoed the whole thing. And that was exactly what it's for. And my plan is later on down the line is I need to have a manifold made for the FC. So I can print off. Ryan Turk did this when he was putting his doing the Formula Supra. You can print off essentially loads of stick together pieces to basically mock up an exhaust out of all these filaments. And instead of having to tack stuff together like you normally, you just clip all these pieces together and you can make up your exhaust that way. But the other side of things is, yes, okay, I've got a lot of stuff I've printed here. Like I've got all these Pokeballs up here and the Piranha plant here and stuff like that. But I'd probably say about 90% of the stuff I've printed is actually useful. So I've got shelves up here and up there, and then some stuff further on. I printed the windscreen thing for the car. But if I hadn't started doing this, I wouldn't have started designing my own things as well.
Yeah.
And there's two kinds of people. Those that will buy a printer and will only print trinkets and do nothing else with it. And then there's the other people that buy one to get into doing prototyping and printing stuff to actually do what it's made for further down the line.
Yeah, I only ended up with one because when I was, if you guys remember, way back when we started this, I started making the YouTube counter on the Arduino. Yeah, it's still like just up there right now. It's how we know our live subscribers and things like that when we're filming. And I built that because I went, has anyone got a 3D printer? I've got something I want to print. And one of our friends went, I've got one I don't use. Do you want it for free? And I wasn't going to look that particular gift horse in the mouth. Right?
Yeah.
So I started off like just doing like simple cases for some of the Arduino stuff. And then I realised I could save a whole load of money on a nanolith by printing it myself. And then probably spent as much money as I would have done on a nanolith by up the prints. Because I knew nothing about bed leveling and you know, not like you get the bed level wrong, you block your nozzle, you melt the PLA into the nozzle, and you've got to replace the whole hot end on the 3D printer.
My counter argument to that is, again, it's you went through the whole process of learning this, and now you basically built something for your RC car. Which you wouldn't have done otherwise. You'd have had to go and buy the stuff, and it would have cost you more that way. But equally, as myself, I call myself a maker because I like making things. So I've made stuff out of Raspberry Pis. I've made something out of a Raspberry Pi for my 3D printer. And all the stuff up here, and I like to make stuff. And I find 3D printing is more of a hobby than actually anything else. Because I'm at a level where it's definitely a hobby for me. I'm not anywhere near Bryn's level of designing stuff. But I'm at a point where, for example, we had nowhere to put these ball thrower, the big plastic thing with the tennis ball thing, so you chuck the ball. I had nowhere to put it, so I just designed a simple L-shaped bracket that was curved. And without actually going through the process, I wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise. And I don't think it's something you ever could have bought.
Yeah, I mean, just if you think about like Bryn, what software do you use for designing?
SolidWorks.
I use Tinkercad. It's for 5-year-olds.
Yeah. But you say that Tinkercad is very good for what it is because you get what you pay for at the end of the day.
Don't pay for Tinkercad.
Yeah, exactly, and that's my point. But you still manage to get the results out of it.
It makes it very accessible. The thing with 3D printers is that they are very useful for, even stuff that you can just find, like a lot of the bits behind Geomat and the windscreen. It's really good for a lot of that stuff. I struggle because there's not actually that much of that kind of thing I need. I'll look around on, not GrabCAD, I can't remember what it's called, but look around and I try and find stuff that I was like, oh yeah, I could print that and it'd be useful. And I don't find that much that's useful for me. But people do. There's so much stuff you can print, but it unlocks a whole nother world of potential that really is what 3D printers are for. As soon as you can design your own bits, because then you go, I need to fix this problem. Okay, draw a few lines, print the thing, I've fixed this problem. And that they're incredible for that. And normal, like just everyday people, you don't have to know that much to be able to do that kind of thing. And Tinkercad is great for that. It allows you to do simple bits that just make your life easier.
So to demonstrate the point, everything that's in... So to get what I've 3D printed, it's massively cheap to 3D print it, because everything that's in the tool chest would have cost me about 200 quid to do, and it's cost me way less than a tenner in material. To design this, it's a I think it's 5mm thick rectangle, some vertical squares, and then you can type text into Tinkercad, turn it into a hole, and then just sync it into it. And that's
really important thing.
There's nothing else to it.
Really important thing about typing text on Tinkercad that no one noticed yet, right? Is, or at least I don't think you picked it up on.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
My camera's mirrored. My camera is mirrored, right?
Actually, no, because your shirt is the correct way round. So one of them is backwards.
I think it's. There you go.
No, that's backwards, but your shirt is not.
Yeah. So the VRS is backwards, but I'll fix that on the next one I print when I decide that I need a camera mount on top of it, because I'm not going to risk a very expensive gimbal camera on the top of on the front.
The other thing to point out here is these trays I've got here. There, I've got probably in excess of about 20 or 30 of them now.
Yeah, and
they are a damn sight cheaper to print than they are to actually buy, because you know the kind of thing that you get in gouges. They're blue, they're plastic.
He's gonna get a thing. Oh, his bot's not out. He's not a proper builder.
Keep rambling.
Keep waffling.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm churning these out as well because they're insanely useful to just store stuff, but they're stackable. So I can keep putting stuff in them, put them that way. I've
got sets of drawers, that kind of thing. I think the really important part about this is the creativity it's going to allow us, because as we move into the land of electric cars, there's certain things that we're going to be able to do at home, and there's certain things we're not going to be able to do at home. And actually, we're starting to see the rise of that kind of DIY max power era stuff is starting to creep back in.
I think the other thing to mention here with 3D printing is it goes incredibly well with the right to repair.
Yeah,
because I think this is one of the reasons that 3D printing has risen as quickly as it is, because if I wanted something, say this size, to fix my washing machine, for example, you can't go and buy that from the manufacturer. You would have had to buy a whole new washing machine or a £200 part or something like that. However, if you've got a 3D printer, all you've got to do is spend 5 minutes in Tinkercad, mark one up, print it out, and your washing machine's as good as new, and it'll cost you about £5 in material.
What I absolutely love is everybody's got us just chatting about our random things while we know Bryn is about to pull something incredibly cool and 3D printed.
He's probably looking for the elephant dick, as it became known.
I thought I was going to pull some cool stuff out. Do you know what? I haven't a clue what I've done with it all. But it went very well with what Matt was saying about like things that would be very expensive or difficult to buy. There's loads of little bits of build tooling while I was building my MX-5 engine that I ended up printing. Things that you just can't get, like a throttle body cover that's exactly the right size and little port blanking things to stop things falling in them. I printed an exhaust cover so that when I'm test fitting stuff or taking it outside, nothing can fall down the ports. Yeah. And that was really, really useful because, again, to buy something like that from a company, you'd probably be paying like 20 quid for these port covers. It costs you about 50p to actually print the thing. But I don't know what I did with them all. So when I build the next engine, that's going to be a problem for me.
Well, it's not, though, because you have
you just print another one.
Yeah.
No, it's wasteful. I know I've got one. I don't want to be printing unnecessary.
The thing I absolutely love the most is you can go on websites like Tinkercad, and there is literally millions of files on there that people have designed and made and then just uploaded for free.
Yeah.
All of this stuff is open source. And this like I said, it pairs really well with the right to repair. And what you end up in the maker community is people want to go and share their ideas. They don't want to charge people for it. They want to have fun and see other people do these things. And you get, and this is one of the things I do like about Tinkercad, is people will remix stuff. So you'll find, so these storage boxes, these aren't the original one. Yeah. The original one, the sides are only about 1 or 2 lines thick and they're quite flimsy. So a guy redesigned them, made it stronger, and it's still compatible with the original one. So if you've got a stack of the original ones, these stronger ones are still compatible with it.
I think that's the really important bit about it is, Thingiverse is an absolute resource for just like generating you random print some days. Like I needed, like, I've got 1 million pens on my desk, so I just printed this little dude, right? in 3D printer. And when I'm drawing, when I'm doing the sticker design work, like,
that's something similar.
I just got Kirby, who is swallowing my pen.
Yeah,
but it's got a little. It's also got a little pen rest for me to, like. It's it's just well thought through little things like that. And they're all from Thingiverse. What I also have that I didn't get from Thingiverse is Matt's SD card. That I keep forgetting. I'll put that.
Yeah, more NC content coming when he's actually downloaded the videos off the stick.
They're off the stick. I just winter. Matt's NC.
We're going to too many shows. That's what's going on.
The build, yeah. Apparently, I'm doing too much stuff again. So speaking of shows, Bryn,
I finally found it, and it's a good example. So when I started my engine build, I didn't have a 3D printer. Nobody had a 3D printer because I started my engine build in 1920. The amount of time it took me.
Is that before the time that Milton's gone on holiday to? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. But one of the first things I needed was something to hold all the rod bolts, because when you torque up connecting rods, that's, they give you a spec, but the correct thing to do is actually measure the stretch of the bolt, mark it, and then put it back to that. Doesn't matter what the torque is, you're doing it by stretch. So you have to keep them in the position that you put them in when you mark them. So I made this, it's just punch a load of holes in a bit of cardboard, but like, that's not ideal. You could have 3D printed quite a nice little tray for that, or something to hold your tappets. And then as time continued, we got these covers for the inlet manifold, really, really useful. And then I ended up with things like, this is a little belt pulley for the power steering belt. And you can print a little hex, and there's a bolt in there, and then you can put that in a drill. And it means you can bleed your power steering without having to actually run the car on a fresh engine. You just put it on a drill and spin it up. You can't buy that, but you can make something like that and do, fix problems. That's one that I found on Tinkercad. That's just a gearbox plug cover. Great. I used a cable tie glove to the back of the gearbox. Doesn't work. It's all oily. It falls out, and so does the oil. This stuff is fantastic. The opportunities that it gives you.
And I think
a load of little injector-sized bungs that I printed so that I could paint my fuel rail without getting paint in the injectors. Normally, you'd put a bit of tape over that. When you peel that off, there'd be bits that hadn't got tape painted because you have to have tape over them. But you can have a plug that fits the ID of the rail instead, and you get perfect coverage. It's these little things that super simple designs that make your life way easier.
And it's one of those things that a lot of the stuff that you're talking about, no company would ever go and make because it's such a niche market. And it means that people can design things and they put it on Tinkercad for free, and then you can go and print it yourself.
Yeah, which reminds me, I really need to upload this. If anybody has a 1.6 MX5 and they need a throttle body cover, they don't exist yet because I keep forgetting to upload this every time I'm on my PC.
Interestingly, Bryn, can you do a throttle body cover? I assume you can adjust the size of that.
Oh, actually,
you just get it. I'll tell you what we'll do. Bryn will have a Tinkercad account, so what we'll do is we'll put his link in the description, his Thingiverse description into the description, so you can get straight to it and get all of those files that he's definitely uploaded by the time this airs.
Yeah, I should do that.
No pressure, Bryn.
Yeah,
It's pretty
exactly.
much a whole kit of MX5 bits. But yeah, actually, this isn't for a 1.6. This is for a 1.8 because I changed my throttle body. But I could do a 1.6. I could do a Skunk 2.1. It's very easy to change.
It's that, and that's what I'm getting at. One of the things that I'm really interested in doing and getting Bryn to help me with is actually for the intake that I've set up. It's not the ideal configuration yet. And I think, given I'm in the coldest part of the bay, we might be able to get away. Certainly not with PLA, but with a different
ABS.
Yeah, with ABS, we might be able to get away with just making the collar that sits between the silicon 90-degree bend that comes out of my throttle body and the filter, which is currently wedged in there and screwed as tight as it can. But just to reinforce that a little bit, that'll stop the filter falling out after a particularly aggressive day of driving.
Yeah, you can get stuff that'll survive that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of our engines on the dyno at work run 3D printed trumpets, and they are fine. We print them out of onyx, which is nylon filled with chopped carbon, basically.
You can get.
I think you can get carbon fiber filament as well.
It's not carbon fiber. You have to chop these little bits of carbon. It's quite strong, but it's not as strong as carbon fiber. But if you have a printer like ours at work, we can infill that with actual carbon fiber. So it's got two nozzles on it, one of which isn't a print head. It just extrudes carbon fibers and has a little blade in it that snips them off. So you can just print them into stuff.
The other thing is, though, if you were making an intake and you wanted to make a carbon fiber intake, you could 3D print something, check the tolerances, check it fits, then make a mold of it, and then you can make a carbon fiber intake really easily, and you know it will fit perfect.
And really importantly, you've not spent a lot of money on carbon fiber to test it and it not fit.
That's quite common. I see people. Some things I don't agree with, and that is a segue that I don't know if we'd get into now or a bit later or whatever. But you can't 3D print everything. Well, you can.
You can 3D print a gun.
You shouldn't 3D print everything.
You should definitely not 3D print a gun.
But it's not suitable for every situation, and people I see all the time on the MX5 Miata 3D printing page. Someone will have 3D printed a component, and they'll be like, "Haha! Look at this! I've saved so much money." And I'm looking at it going, "No, that doesn't want to be plastic. That won't work."
So a good example of that is I printed where on the windscreen cowl you've got two screws holding it in. One of the covers was missing through, which is that I've had in my hand all night. By the time I finished printing this, it cost me more than it would have actually cost me to buy one. But now I've got experience printing with this particular filament, I can now design stuff that goes outside in direct sunlight without it warping or any of that sort of stuff. So I can actually print this. This was more valuable to me learning a skill set than it was actually buying it.
And that's the thing. You will 110% cock it up the first time you have a go, right? I don't know anyone. Bryn will probably correct me here and go, "No, I printed it perfectly the first time."
Stuff that I cocked up.
And I can tell I lost count of the collection of tester cubes that I think I just threw at people at house parties.
I think the thing to point out here is we're all working on a price point of about £200 for a 3D printer, apart from you, man, because you didn't pay anything for it. But your printer itself would be about £200 if you were buying it brand new. And at this price point, a lot of what we're doing is manual. So you've got to manually level the bed, manually tweak all the settings and your slice and all of this sort of stuff. If you go to professional grade level, so when you're paying like $1,000 plus, most of it you just put the file in and it will just do it all for you. There are printers that will level their own beds and that sort of thing.
There is some disadvantage to that, though, I must say. That one good thing about how manual it is. So, I'm not interested in printing. Like Matt says, printing's a hobby for him, and he if I don't know how to do something, I'll ask him because Matt has been through all the settings and he's dicked with all the different shit and he knows what works. I ain't got a clue. I just want to put the file in and get it out. But the amount of stuff you can change in your 3D printer settings allow you to do some quite, clever things. I printed some wheels for a model car not long ago. There's a setting called ironing where the end of the nozzle goes over the thing you've done at the end to smooth it all out. And I wanted to do that in a few different places. And because it just outputs code, you can just copy and paste that ironing and do it in a few different places. But the software won't do that for you. You have to set it up yourself. And the one we use at work has no manual ability at all. And it actually does a load of stuff that I don't want it to. Like that carbon fiber that I talked about that you can tell it to lay in.
Yeah.
I have no control over what direction that carbon fiber is laid in, which can completely make or break the point of putting it in. I put carbon fiber strands in because I have a thing that I know is going to be pulled. But if the software insists on doing it like this and not in the direction you want, it's almost useless. So it's actually quite good having the ability to play with all these settings. As long as you know what they do, it's powerful.
Yeah, I think on the scale of actually knowledge about how to operate the printer, I'm probably like the bottom of the pile because I print every now and again and normally with a purpose in mind, and that's why I've got so many multicolored prototypes behind me, because I literally I digged about right as I went through it, and it gave me something to do. I was getting I build the little Uris, I'm designing stickers all the time, and I was getting a bit bored. I needed a new little project.
I was say we picked up these. I think all three of us picked up our printers within a couple of weeks of each other, and it was all. I think it was end of November, early December last year.
Yeah.
So we were coming out of the end of the second lockdown just before Christmas, and I think we were all just bored by that point. We've done everything else.
Yeah,
there's nothing else to do.
And like one of the very first things I printed was the original case, and actually it came out all right and it functioned, other than the fact that what I'd actually done, it would have functioned if I hadn't laid it in the slicer with half of it hanging off the back of the slicer. Little things like that. But ultimately, I think the thing is, like, ultimately that model then grew into this little thing, right? That now, that'll follow us until we run out of digits that'll fit on it, by which point we'll be over 1,000 subscribers and probably hopefully be able to afford something a bit fancier. But all that does is an API call to the YouTube channel. We've got a Google partner program and it goes, I want to have a look at that. And then we made it pretty with 3D printing. Because it was at one point an Arduino unit, a bunch of cables and some screens. Just hanging out. And I think if you're 3D printing, there's an element of that me and Matt have both got into a little bit of coding. Matt predominantly Raspberry Pi, and me with Arduinos, and that comes alongside it. You start going, what else can I do with this?
So it's a good point, because you start with the very basic stuff. So I made the I've got an.
There's an emergency.
Yeah,
Birmingham.
No, I don't anymore, actually. But I started when I made the Octopi, it's called, for my 3D printer. I think Bryn wants one of these as well. I'll be able to easily knock this out for you. All it was go online and copy and paste some code across and just follow the instructions. And that's the first thing I've ever done with Linux ever, and it just works.
Yeah.
And all I've done is copy and paste code. I have no idea how to set that up by hand. But what it's done is I've had some experience with Linux now, and actually it's not as scary as you think it would be. So you start then playing with some other stuff, and you go, oh, actually, yeah, this is only a step up from that. And then this is only a step up from that. And then what you end up with is the guy who's now selling I can never pronounce it, Speeduino unit, which is basically an Arduino that's an ECU. And if all of this stuff, 3D printing, Arduinos, Raspberry Pis, if all of this stuff wasn't cheap and accessible, there's not a chance anybody would have made that. And he is selling, if I remember rightly, he's selling them for about half of what an ME221 is.
Yeah,
and it's
half as good.
Yeah, but
you get what you pay for.
Turbo car on a budget, that is absolutely a fantastic way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends who have run their cars on Speedway, and yes, they will run a car, and that is pretty fucking incredible, really.
Yeah.
You put it into context. You think a guy's just made that probably in his bedroom with an Arduino, and it'll run a car. An ECU in a car is not a simple thing.
No.
And he's made that out of stuff you can buy off the shelf.
And the reality is as you get into these things, there's other hobbies that unfold, right? Bryn has very much got into it because of what he does for a living, and then he's like, I could.
And also, it's my hobby because I have no chill. I have one hobby and one job. They're the same thing. If it's not cars and engines, I literally don't care.
I think we've all three of us got into 3D printing for different reasons. Bryn's got into it out of necessity. Bam, you needed a part that nobody could actually print for you because you didn't know anybody with a 3D printer.
Well, I did, but they weren't using it, so they gave it me.
Yeah. And then I originally got a 3D printer because I wanted something to put my two lightsabers together. And again, same as you, I couldn't get anybody to 3D print me one. But also, I'd been interested in one for years, and I was waiting for that price point to come down.
I actually distinctly,
because I like making stuff.
I distinctly remember Matt asking me to print it about 20 times, and me going, "Yeah, when I finished making this thing, that was running 24 hours a day for about 3 weeks."
Yeah, and then I got my own printer and printed it and millions of other things before you'd even finished it.
Yeah, because that was like I've still not actually finished that because there's some Arduino coding for the LEDs that, quite frankly, I got bored of the project. So the little white box that lives under it is just something I picked up as a controller on Amazon to do that bit of the job, because I as shit get the code to work. I could probably do it now, but I just can't be bothered to revisit the project.
The other thing is this 3D printing is fantastic for doing 3D modeling, as in like model cars, for example. So if you quite often see the little model cars that you can buy for about 50 odd quid, that you can basically build yourself an MX-5. And what you quite often see is people modifying them to match their real life car. And it's not very easy to get certain ducktails or wings or wheels or stuff like that. So you can 3D print stuff that actually matches this. But as well as that, obviously, I see this quite a lot, is people do custom stuff for model railways, for example. Yeah, there you go, one of those.
Yeah, one of those.
So, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. If you wanted to make that into a certain
Is that a
way,
Model GS, Bryn?
No, I can't get hold of those at all. This is an LS.
Oh, okay.
I can't get hold of a GS. If you've got a Model GS that you don't want, please sell it to me for less money than the stupid amount that the classic ones are worth.
I'll get on Yahoo Auctions for you later, Bryn.
Matt's point is, so I like, these are the wheels that it came on, and there's loads of wheels you can buy for these things, and I didn't really like any of them. And in my opinion, the best looking wheel for any big body car isn't. It's an Aim Gain. I can't remember what the model is. So I printed some, and now I've got the wheels, and you can't buy these, but now I've got the wheels I like.
Yeah, and it works. I've seen this quite a lot. It's probably not as applicable for that sort of thing unless you were printing your own shell body. But for model railways, they obviously don't make everything that's ever existed in real life. So quite a lot of people 3D print their own shells and then just put their own thing on and then paint it up, and you've now got exactly what you were looking for. And I think that
brings us right back to where we started, of printing the shell for your RC car. You know, that's fundamentally what this is. It's designed to clip onto the body, and like I can pick this up by that comfortably now. Like that's not a thing that it's going to fall off. And that's, you know, that we've gone over the benefits quite a lot of 3D printers. So, like, maybe get one, maybe explore some stuff, because you're not going anywhere for a while. because there's no fuel. Hopefully there's enough fuel to get your new 3D printer delivered. But
it all depends on the person, because there's quite a lot of people out there that will have zero interest in making anything.
Yeah.
They just want to buy it off the shelf and fit it in the car, and that's absolutely fine. And like I said, I'm a maker. I like making things, and I have a lot of fun doing this. So like this windscreen cup, like little cat, I have a lot of satisfaction in actually doing this, because I was sending pictures to Bryn for about a week of all the failed prints, because this is PETG, which is an absolute nightmare to print because it doesn't stick to the bed. You have to print it a lot harder than everything else to actually get it to work. And I just enjoy the process. I like making things. And like the desk that I'm sat at here, I made myself out of wood. I've never made anything else out of wood since I was at school, but the point still...
To be clear.
What was that, mate?
No, I didn't.
He didn't print the wood.
But you can. You can, and there's the thing. You can effectively print MDF.
Yeah, but even attached to this desk are tiny little 3D printed hooks to bring all my cables up off the floor.
And here's
it still applies. Just making your own shit.
And here's the ultimate part of it, right? You can 3D print upgrades for your 3D printer, which means you could buy a little 3D printer like the one that we've got.
You can gradually 3D print a 3D printer.
Yeah, gradually increase the size of your 3D printer. And then, if you get the nozzles right and the concrete right, you can just 3D print yourself a garage to store your race cars in.
Actually, that's a good point, because you bring up bigger 3D printers. And if I remember right, I think it was Project Binky had their arches on their Mini 3D printed.
Mate, it goes bigger than that. There's a place that's printing rocket. There's robots that build bridges by effectively 3D printing them, and they just print themselves a track and just create a bridge. And you're like,
I've seen 3D printed boats and
houses
everything.
So look, this is something that actually the car community is really starting to get into now, because it's given us a new angle to modify stuff. I think
This is my point. Like, as much as you could go and mold your own arches and like do all the sculpting on the car, if you're good at 3D rendering, you could 3D render the arches that you want, and then just directly transfer that into a 3D printer and print the arches.
Yeah, and if you were particularly attached to the concept of still making the mold, you could 3D print the arches to make the mold and then mold the thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you want fiberglass arches or carbon fiber arches, you 3D print it. That's your rapid prototype that you trial fit to the car, and then you make the mold from that.
Bryn's
had an idea.
I have, exactly on that vein, so I'll be back in approximately 30 seconds.
Okay. So while this is the greatest episode. You got to see Bryn's ass. He's running away.
We're actually not that on topic for cars, but I think it's very, very relevant.
It is
for cars and modifying.
Yeah, and this is why I brought this up. So I've designed that bracket, right? That's not going to be the last set of brackets I design for filming, recording, that kind of thing. I am 110% now that I've got the next part of my drone license sorted, and am now allowed to fly over racetracks in certain areas, because they're accepting my risk assessments. I'm gonna get an FPV drone and 3D print a way to mount another camera to it, right? When I've got the money. There's things like, could you, like, you can print in pretty much any material if you get the setup right. So here's a thing in the future. Could you print the new sill, the new arches for your MX-5?
Yes, because you can print in metal.
Yeah, exactly.
So quite a lot of put it this way: Papadakis Racing 3D printed a intake manifold for, was it Asbo's? I think it was Asbo's Supra.
Yeah. It was, yeah. And that's incredibly expensive at the moment. Like that was
metal 3D printing.
But then if you think about it, so was plastic 3D printing about 5 years ago.
But eventually it won't be.
Because to put it this way, so Ryan Turk had his, I I think his entire exhaust for the Formula Super was 3D printed.
It's all the collectors and all of the flanges and stuff. They 3D.
Yeah. It was all 3D printed. But the thing is, it's incredibly hard to get it into the space that he's working in, and that's one of the benefits of it's easier to make as one piece and you can get it in. But the other thing he pointed out was when you make the collectors, you don't have any weld on the inside. So obviously when you weld something, you can get spatters and stuff on the inside that will disrupt airflow. But because of the way it's 3D printed, there's none of that. It's clean lines all on the inside.
That's a whole direction to go in. Sorry, that is one of the big advantages commercially of 3D printing that and a lot of people possibly don't think about is you can actually make things which are impossible conventionally. You physically cannot do them. So some of the engines I'm working on at the moment, we're actually 3D printing the engine block, not the part itself because it's not quite strong enough, but all the tooling to make it. And that allows you to do shapes and things that you literally can't do traditionally.
The thing I was going to say there is, you've still got, if you get your config right, you've still got a certain element of it's not perfectly smooth, but ultimately you can get around that through traditional porting and polishing, and that'll give you, that will give you potentially as close to laminar gas flow as you're going to get in a pipe in an engine. Before Bryn digs into me again from his mechanical engineering.
I don't know how true this is, but the odds are it's actually, we're going to get to a point where it's cheaper to 3D print something in metal and stronger than it is to make something out of billet.
Strong disagree.
It's not possible now. I don't think it's possible now, but I think we're going to get to a point where it's going to be more cost effective.
All I want to know is when.
Yes, more cost effective, definitely. Stronger, probably not.
Well, think about Chris's intake manifold, for example. His entire plenum that's off the top of that, the 350Z. Think about how much material was actually thrown away to make that thing. Whereas if you'd 3D printed it, you'd have only used the amount of metal that it actually took, plus a few supports in the middle.
Here's the other actually interesting point about that moving forward, right? All that material that was shaved off that block of billet, if we get the recycling of that right, those shavings can absolutely go to prototyping for parts made in aluminium 3D printed, right?
Yeah, and on that, we wanted to 3D print that intake. It is a perfect application because another thing that 3D printing is very good for is something like Matt says, where actually it's a big item, but it's not very thick, it's not very heavy, there's not a lot of material there.
And it was hollow as well.
Yeah. So it's perfect for 3D printing because you can make a big thing without using a lot of material. Another way of doing that is casting. The problem with casting is that you have to make tooling, so it's expensive, which is where 3D printing is good. But just the cost made it impossible. It was cheaper to buy a 40 kilogram piece of aluminium and machine away 37 kilograms of it.
Yeah, that's my
point. When it was to 3D print it, which is a shame because that's very wasteful. 3D printing is a perfect application for it.
What was it you wandered off to get, Bryn? Because I'm curious.
Oh yeah,
it was on Matt's point of people modifying, making things for their own cars.
Oh, the wheels, yeah.
No. When we both lived in Loughborough, I started a project. I like TSIs at the time, turn signal intakes. But I didn't like the ones that were just like a little bit of metal. I wanted to make a smooth one. And that was impossible at the time. Here's the shitty thing that I ended up with, cutting up a standard one because it was the only way to get the shapes I wanted and kind of trimming and gluing this bit of the light back in to create a little indicator thing. This is now something you could 3D print one of these and
I think you can actually
shape it and get it to look like you want, because craftsmanship wise, it's very difficult to make this manually. But as long as you've got the skills, it's a lot easier to design it and then just print it, because the printer will just print.
Because I think that's actually one of the things you can pick up on Thingiverse for free.
Well, there's shit, and I want to make my own.
But this is the point. So you can go to Thingiverse, you can grab that file, the screw-in points will already be correct because they wouldn't have uploaded it otherwise, or you'll see in the comments that it's not right. And they'll have the fixtures for the bulbs and the lights and everything, and then all you have to do is slightly tweak it to fit exactly what you want. It's going to save you a shit ton of time. And this is one of the benefits of having open source everything, and it leads nicely into the right to repair. It's already there, so you just got to tweak it to your liking.
Yeah, I think that's the key to what the future holds is, you know, the replicator in Star Trek is a big steaming pile of bullshit, but actually, I'm now sat next to a thing that I can make quite a lot of household items really easily in. So for those of you that have enjoyed the technical chat that we've had without Milton, because I'm pretty sure, in fact, I'll make a Milton joke for him. Dildos. There you go. That's what he'd have been asking about.
In fact, we've done this entire episode in one take. No retakes of the intro, no wipes, nothing, because Milton's not here, and it happens every time he's not here. There you go. You've got to edit an explosion.
Did you see that tank explosion last week? If you haven't seen it, go watch the whole episode.
Yeah. Just all of it. Everything.
And while you're there, smash the like and subscribe button. Look, if you want to see more of us talking about this kind of stuff, if you kind of want us, maybe you want a how-to guide, we'll get Matt to do some basic how-to.
Ooh, no. There's much better people out there already that have better guides.
What we will do, if you want to get started, is I won't link to the dig row that I've got because they don't make it anymore. But Matt will drop me over his model, and we'll put a link to the Amazon page for that down below.
I also want to say, like, obviously we're very approachable. So, like, if you want to chat to us about more 3D modeling with Bryn, actual 3D printing with me, like anything at all, just you know where we all are.
Speaking of being approachable, shout out to Will again.
Yeah, every week to somebody else walks up to us in public, which is not going to happen for a while.
Yeah. Random subscriber challenges happening at Tracks, just as a warning to everybody going. So if you are watching any of our stuff, make sure you hit the subscribe button, because there is a chance that a weird bearded bloke might run up to you screaming in your ear, "Are you subscribed to the Violent Running channel?" And if you are, you might win.
Subscribe.
Yeah. I'll be kicking about on the Modified Girls stand at that event. And I am with Honda Gang Manchester yesterday at MIMS. So there'll be a video coming from that. Big shout out to Three Sisters for letting me have permission to fly my drone around their racetrack now.
There are three. Okay, I had wondered where MIMS had gone since Rockingham closed. Yep. So that's where they were last.
Well, there you go. So thanks for watching this episode. That down there has been very energetically moving about Bryn.
Sorry, I've started to get distracted as well.
We're set. Smile and wave, Bryn. Smile and wave.
Smile and wave.
Matt's inspired me to tinker with this because I've just realised all the things I couldn't do at the time that I can now just print.
On that note, thanks everybody for watching. We're gonna let Bryn play. Thanks for giving us another hour of your lives. We've got some cool stuff coming up. We're gonna have Boffy Racing back. We are going to have another episode on mental health with the guys from Tacona and Claire from Pit Stop Social. We sorted that one out. We had a chat with a few people. We just need to get it into the schedule. We have got a list on the wall. We've got an episode where Milton's going to wear a frock coming up. We just need to buy him the frock.
But yeah, we've got obviously Tracks is coming up. The MIMS video will be coming up.
Yeah, through winter, the build videos will start flowing for you all, kind of how-to guides, and then back into the show stuff through summer. We're going to try and create this sort of schedule, this pattern, so you know what's coming. Every Monday, shooting the shift, unless we have a catastrophic failure of me as a human being able to be somewhere. But yeah. Have a good one. If you're at Tracks, swing by, say hello. If we can all get to Tracks, because No fuel. I might.
Anyway,
Yeah.
let's not pull that thread again.
So have a good week. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, do all that. Bye bye. Bryn is desperately looking around for something to do.
Bye, you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Where are my liars?
That's staying in.